letting you in. Take a look at you and start to lose my balance. What am I falling into? This feels like something new. I've seen a lot of views, but they were nothing like this. The way you do what you do, I think you're something brand new.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome from EY, who was a partner in the report, Serge Colle. We have Deputy Director General at ENER, Mechthild Wörsdörfer, and we have VP European Regulation at E.ON, Franz. Come and take a seat. And also Innovation and General Partnership General Manager at Vernova's Electrification business, Claudia Blanco. Hi, Claudia. Hi, come and take a seat. Hello, hi.
Hello, how are you?
Hello. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Good morning.
It's lovely to have such a full panel on stage. There we go. Come and take a seat. Thank you. Lovely to see you all. First off, I have one phrase to say to you, and I'd love to know your thoughts. 67 billion. Right, Claudia's face was, yeah. grab the microphone. Oh, you've got one on. Yes. So go on. Tell me your thoughts on that money.
I hope you can hear me okay. Well, actually, it's so much necessary because we have a grid that has almost 100 years, right? So we talk about the need of modernization, but we are asking much more to the grid than ever. So our grid is not ready to respond to the current needs. So we ask to be reliable, resilient, flexibility must be there. It has to secure, energy security, but also it has to maintain sustainability and affordability. So all of that together. So it makes a lot of investment.
So when Christian said 67, you were like, yeah, I get that. I see that. Mechthild?
Thank you very much. And I, first of all, welcome the study very much. And it's about the direction we have to go. We have put grids at the European Commission, at the European Union, top on the agenda. And the Prime Minister mentioned our action plan on grids. And we have similar figures on investment needs. Maybe not to the dot, but it gives you the magnitude of investments we need, both in transmission, but very much so in distribution. That's why I think it's order of magnitude of things we have to do together.
Yeah. Okay, so it's same ballpark, and yeah, absolutely. Serge, what do you think? Sorry, Oliver, what do you think?
Well, as I was inter alia responsible for making that number appear, I believe it's very sound. To give you an idea, there are many sources that we tapped into, but one that I'm extremely proud of because a lot of colleagues here in the room contributed to that. We really have the wrap in this thing. So we know when things are too old and need replacement. So it's a realistic view on things. Also, the new investment has been calculated by the Imperial College of London, so it's what the planner does in the end. We add PV, and somewhere the system says, no, I can't do it, and then we need to enlarge. What I'm most happy about, though, is that we also looked at how to reduce that if possible. And one of the things that Christian mentioned, of course, and if I may, that I would also like to mention is really this question of anticipatory investment, because what was modeled is strategic oversizing, meaning in the moment of investment, we don't take the one asset that would fit the need right now, but we anticipate, if you want, the need in 2050 and therefore go larger, and that really creates benefit for the consumer in the end, but it is going to be a challenge for the regulator also, as Christian mentioned. But in this way of thinking about the numbers, I'm all fine, thank you.
Okay, good. That's really 67 billion. Then your thoughts? What do you think? Did you shudder, or are you comfortable?
Well, we are of course in a capital-intensive industry, so with that in mind, I'm never easily shocked when I saw those numbers. Again, I mean, Oliver mentioned that we looked in great detail, at how to come to that number. So I can talk a bit more about how we did that. But I think the real point is not so much, I would say, the number in itself. I mean, it's financeable, it's relative. If we compare it, and we saw it from Christian, if we compare it to some of the other expenditures that we have, I mean, it is a relative number. And in terms of impact that it will have, that it can have on a tariff, if we electrify, again, it's a relative number. I think the biggest challenge, and we'll talk more about it, I guess, is all about the implementation, which is one of the I's that Christian talked about. Is it feasible to even spend that money in the speed, at the rate that we will have to spend it?
Yeah. Okay, I think let's get your views. If you wouldn't mind taking out your phones for me. And what I'm going to do is let's run a poll and see what you think about this. So first of all, we're going to ask you where you think the most critical need is. So if you can use the QR code, please do. We're going to use Slido, which I'm sure you've come across before. So if you have the Slido app on your phone, or if you want to go to the website, the hashtag for it is PowerSummit24, or use the QR code, which should take you straight there. And I think I can see that the room is happy. So let's move on to the question and launch the question for you. So we're asking, what do you believe, and I'll ask you as well on stage, but what do you believe is the most critical investment need for modernising the grid? So what do you think? Is it the actual physical expansion? Is it making it more flexible so that we can integrate more renewable energy? So that flexibility. Or we've given you a third option as well, which is the extreme weather events. So looking at resilience. So physical expansion, enhancing grid flexibility, or resilience against extreme weather events. I can see it. Mechthild, you're voting. Brilliant. Good. Right. Which one did you vote for?
First of all, I agree that all three are important.
You see, all three is not an option.
I tried.
You tried, yes.
So I put the grid flexibility for better integration of renewable energy.
Okay.
It was hard to decide between physical expansion and the flexibility. I think we need both, obviously. Yeah. But given what I also heard from Greece, and I was in Athens yesterday, with a growing number of renewables, there's no other way than also to expand the grids.
You need that, okay. This is why we never give an all of the above, because everyone would just go all of the above. Okay, are we ready? Let's take a look and see how the room voted. Oh, look at that. Yeah, the room went with you. So yeah, good 2/3 going for, getting the flexibility to integrate further. Only 5% for weather events. Claudia, where would you have gone? What were you thinking?
About the three options, again, I think there is a lot of renewable energy waiting for the grid, right? Yeah. So, and we will see the need of having a hybrid offering of energy. And we will talk later about data with energy, right? Data is exploding, so the need of data is necessary for energy, but also vice versa. And data will require much more power, so much more renewable energy to be decarbonized at the same time. So definitely the flexibility for better integration is critical. Yeah, it's really key if we go with that first.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that only 5% for extreme weather events, particularly given everything that we deal with. But obviously, as far as this room is concerned, yes, it's important, but that is not the priority. What do you think when you see how the room has voted here?
Well, I see the case for flexibility. We were extremely thankful with the Commission and the legislators that we now have this new form of more flexible connection agreements. I believe that for renewables, I mean, the talk of the town is build solar and wind together, build wind where you have just built in solar and so on. And this will be extremely helpful. But I personally would have voted grid physical expansion, not only because I'm a grid person, but if you imagine, for instance, the charge points that we were talking about earlier, if you imagine renewable go-to areas, if you imagine highway electrification, that's all things where we are probably talking about areas of countries where the grid is not existent, or even the number goes down while I speak, so I'm not really convincing, obviously. So I believe there are so many occasions when we will actually have to build new grid. And while we do that, we of course also improve the existing one. And therefore I believe that in many cases we can take the resilient topic along while we do that. So of course, if we rebuild something, we think about, is this a flood area? If so, maybe we put them back on poles, and so on. So it is really, how should I say, we do this in the same stride. So I don't think that by saying expansion, I'm not saying resilience, rather the opposite way.
Yeah, so what you're saying is it's the natural thing to do is when you are expanding, you make sure it is resilient. You make sure it is flexible. Serge, what did you think? Was that what you were expecting?
Yeah, well, in a way, but I was also with Oliver, so my vote was also with A. Again, it all depends on what you define as critical.
Yeah.
When you think about the most money, I mean, it will definitely be A, without a doubt. You know, and there's also a timing element to it, yeah? I mean, we have this massive connection challenge to start with, and it's all about connecting new stuff, and we'll have to reinforce networks to do that as well. And then afterwards, it will be an integration challenge, right? Which is like a second phase. You know, it is already happening, of course, but you know, we'll have to integrate renewables, intermittent generation. We'll have to integrate, of course, also those massive peaks that come from those new applications like EVs as well as heat pumps. And so it's the integration afterwards, of course, which triggers that flexibility. It's actually easy as well as hard to implement. That is maybe also something to note. Because in a way, there's a lot of flexibility available when we think about, you know, peakers, gas peakers as an example, but also batteries are of importance. But increasingly, we'll have to move also to flexibility at the distribution level, specifically with customers where we will see an abundance, which is the positive use of flexibility options, but they're not so easy to get, not technically, but if you think about, you know, the whole system. So yeah, I mean, they both matter, but there's a bit of a timing element to it.
Sure. Mechthild.
I wouldn't put it on the timely matter. I think we need both now. So that's the only difference to what has been just said. Because if we see it timely, I think we all speak about what is needed is planning, anticipatory investments, which we always highlight also here this morning already. I think we need to do both at the same time. But otherwise, I fully agree.
Okay. Actually, Serge, let me come back to you because you know, the figures that we're talking about and the way we're talking about that is in a very homogenous way. And obviously, it's not. You know, different countries are very different. Different countries will have different needs, may actually have a different need of priorities, even when we're looking at these three areas. So are you able to just give us a couple of pointers of what you picked out of the report?
So maybe very quickly, just on the methodology. So, I mean, we're really proud in terms of how this was done in a very short time frame, but also very thankful for all of the data, and Oliver mentioned it, that we've gotten from all of the DSOs. So I think it's very important to know that it's probably a first where we actually got real data that covers about 60% of Euro's grid, for starters. So as in real data points about grid length, age, you know, all of the equipment that sits on the grid, again, the age, the existing loads, but also we've been adding on top of that, you know, our projections in terms of the adoption of all of those new technologies that would put, you know, that would either have to be connected or that would put additional load onto the network. So it's a great level of detail, which is now available, of course, also for all of those participating countries. The good thing is that, I mean, we all, of course, are moving towards the same targets, but we all have a different starting point. So every country has their own energy transition to speak with. So with that in mind, I think there's a tool now available also for those individual DSOs to actually work their way through the numbers and to determine their best path forward.
Yeah. Oliver, you look like you wanted to come in there.
Well, one thing that really gives me confidence in the result is that if you look at the result, and that was our ask to EY from the very beginning, we want this at least on national level as well.
Yep.
So the 67, if you want, exists for every country that took part, or rather for every country in Europe. And then you see that, for instance, a country like Norway, and it's EU 27 plus Norway, you have to say that, or a country like France, where at least on the heat side, the electrification has happened already, shows a rather different investment picture than a country like my own home country, Germany, where a lot of the heat electrification, of course, will have to happen going forward. And so the numbers really fit, and you can see that the differences in the nation, the challenges are different, Sometimes the technologies are a bit different. So, but like I said, it's really, you can see your own home country and you probably identify from the numbers a few problems that you meet at work. So that gives me a lot of confidence in what our numbers are now, right?
Yeah, and I'm sure everyone in this room is thinking of their home country or countries that they serve at the moment and knowing exactly where those data points would be. You mentioned new technologies, new tech, new innovation. Claudia, that's very much your area. Just very briefly, because we know that new technology has the power to drive down costs, but what is the thing that you really feel could make a difference when we're looking at this investment strategy?
So let's say that innovation, I will say quickly, we need to take risk.
No, okay.
Right?
Okay.
So if we think about how innovation can be deployed faster, because it's an enabler to take costs down, as you say. Why? Because modernization, per se, yeah. So the modernization means that we need to make a lot of changes in what we have today as a grid, right? So innovation will take the cost down just because modernization is making a lot of blackouts, it's making a lot of problems of power shortage, and we need to reinforce this area. So investing in innovation will take the cost down just because of cost avoidance first, right? So how to make it happen is again taking risk, because we talk about the document that the report that you have prepared. What I love about that is the data, because I always tell to my team, to my engineers, you cannot ask for funding for innovation if you don't have a business case, if you don't explain why, right? So you explain the why. And it's obvious that we need more money, but why, you know, and how? So definitely this is my first reaction. And again, innovation, I think we are not putting much money as we should, and we cannot solve the problems of today without looking into the problems of the future. Yeah.
It's interesting that you started that answer by saying we need to take risks, and actually when money is short and investment targets are very high, quite often risk is the last thing that people want to do. I'll tell you what we're going to do. Let's get your phones out again, because we're talking about money. Let's move on to the next question, if I may. So let's have a look at this one. So we're going to look at public-private partnerships and their role in funding and distribution grid investments. So public-private partnerships. What do you think here? What role should they play? Should they be leading investment in grid infrastructure projects? Should they be providing innovative financing solutions and, crucially, sharing those risks that you've talked about, Claudia? Or should it be supporting research and development of grid technologies? I'll give you a couple more moments. If you need to reopen Slido, that QR code will take you there. Mechthild, I saw you voting. We didn't give you an all of the above. What did you go for?
I think this is particularly hard to decide, but I voted for providing innovative financing and risks, which we discussed right now, and I think that is the most role where we can have public-private partnership in particular, because we need these innovative schemes and the risk-taking in grids, in distribution grids, but by the way, also on transmission. That's why I went for option 2B.
You may not have seen, but you had lots of nods from your fellow panelists. Okay, let's see how the room voted. What did we get? Oh, there we go. Yeah. You're very, very good at reading the room. I'm thinking this is a good thing. Yeah, very much innovative financing solutions and sharing risks. Is this the way forward, Oliver? What do you think?
I do believe so, and I would have in as much voted exactly like Mechthild has, and obviously the majority of the people in the room. Yeah. One of the things that we also discuss in the study really is to say, okay, if we now do the anticipatory investments, be it just strategic upsizing or building actually a connection to a renewable, I still use the word go-to area, it's not the technically correct acceleration area. Thank you, Mechthild. Then there is, of course, the issue of the demand, be it in the end generation or really demand not being there, and that will create a pressure on the fee, at least in the short term. And the question that we've been asking ourselves is, isn't that maybe the moment when we need more innovative financing, where maybe also funding, public funding might play a role? Because we in the end, we firmly believe that, and the Commission does too, it is my understanding, that the private money must be brought in, that private money in the end needs to finance this. But we can obviously provide more help, and we need probably also to talk about the one asset that in the end is overbuilt. So I don't believe that we have a big risk of overbuilding right now because the demand outgrows the grid, but there will be an asset that is not used in the end. And then our investors would probably like to know what will happen with that asset before they actually give us the money to do that. So yeah, B is probably the one where the most discussion needs to be had, and then we need to go forward.
Okay, thank you. Serge, when you look at that and when you think about your report and everyone that you spoke to and all the data that you gathered, I mean, do you have examples or ideas of what could work, what should work?
Well, maybe let me just start by saying that I was definitely not going to vote on C. No, just calling that one out because, I mean, there's actually plenty of interesting, R&D projects going on, well-funded, by the way, broadly by the EU, but also at national level. And we don't lack, I would say, R&D initiatives or pilots. We lack industrialization and scaling up, right? So that is maybe, I think, an important thing to emphasize. There is a bit of a sort of great levelizer, so to speak, across the different countries, which is, of course, that we all have a regulatory regime, with tariff schemes which are there, which broadly, I would say, are similar in their nature. So, I mean, it's not there that I see necessarily a lot of, innovation in itself going. But we do require this fundamental shift, also on the regulatory side from, looking backwards to looking forward, right? So, and that is maybe, I think, the one thing, this is where the innovation will be, which is in this dialogue to really be more precise about, what is it that we need to do to invest for the future, rather than to imagine, where was the coldest day of the year and how did it hit our network in the past? Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah.
No, it does make total sense. And so if I understand this correctly, what you're saying is, there's lots of innovation there.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, it needs to be kicked up into implementation.
Skilled up, yeah. And if we think about what's holding us back of doing that, in part it's regulatory regime. In part it's also, I would say, the uncertainty for the investor, which is, one of the biggest issues. Because, regardless of what we're thinking, if we want to be investing, this, let's say, roughly 50 billion per year, in any case, we do need to provide, I would say, a reasonable return to the investors doing so. And the only way to provide for that, of course, other than the regulatory regime, is actually to take into account the risk which is associated with that investment. Yeah.
So we're straight back to what Claudia was saying. Okay, let's take a third question, if I may. And I think this will give us a really good idea of the way ahead. So, what's the next crucial challenge to tackle for the energy infrastructure? Okay, so if you're talking about implementation, actually giving implementation that sort of kick forward, what's the one to tackle? What is it? Is it skilled workforce, procurement and industrial competitiveness? I can't wait to see what you voted on this one. Resilience to extreme climate events and cyber attacks, or societal buy-in? We've not talked about that yet. And that is a huge area. Whether or not this room thinks that that's the next critical stage or not, I don't know. So let's have a look. Right, let's get the results on this one. Where did we go? Oh, okay. It's still changing as we speak, but it is definitely in the industrial competitiveness and procurement. Claudia, you're nodding at that one.
Yeah, no, definitely. I would have answered B and A.
B and A you've gone for, right? Yeah. What about you, Serge? What does?
Yeah, I was going to go for D. For D actually. No, because if you look at where the energy transition is stuttering right now, I mean, it is about this buy-in, and it's about cost of living crisis, And there's a lot of benefit. I mean, we can talk all day long about the benefits that lie ahead of us in 2050. We can potentially halve the energy bill for the end consumer if you think about it, just because of the energy efficiency of the electric-driven applications. But the fact of the matter is that a lot of decisions have to be taken, and we need to provide benefits now, right? Not in So I think customers worry much more about the end of the week than about the end of the decade. So it's all about buy-in, and I think that will drive investment as well.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. And then joint second with societal buy-in is actually the skilled workforce. That is an area of challenge for so many industries at the moment. Huge, huge area, and you are all nodding. Mechthild, I mean, how do you tackle that?
I mean, we already do quite a lot on the industrial competitiveness side, and I think that is also now and for the next Commission one of the key areas to work in agreement or in line with the European Green Deal. I don't see any opposition of the two. It's really part of the same game: competitiveness, security of supply, and affordability. But here, if we speak about European energy infrastructure, and here I think more large, like the big interconnectors, Bulgaria, Greece, or others, which we are co-funding with our CEF money, Connecting Europe facility. I think the sea is also very important if we speak about this big interconnector connecting Europe, which has helped us in the past and which is also the future where we need to do more. That's why I wouldn't neglect the sea point as well.
Well, as you said, that it suddenly went from 14 to 15%, so somebody definitely agreed with you. So, it comes back to how you invest, where you invest, but moving it from the innovation to the implementation. The room thinks it's the procurement and industrial competitiveness that is the most important, but very closely behind everything else that this industry is facing as a challenge and a big bill. But as you've all said, this is something that is there, can be managed, and is something that you are all working with. Yeah. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been really interesting to get your views on the grids and the scale of the investment, and dare I say, the speed of the investment as well. Ladies and gentlemen, please thank our panel. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.